Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Courtroom Insider. Today is the 15th of April, 2025, coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona, where it was a beautiful day today, nice and warm, and the trial is one step closer to being done for Lori Vallow Daybell on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, the murder of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, back on July 11th of 2019. Thanks for being here. Every night we break down the case. If you're new here, we welcome you. And this has been a case that we've been following for 5.5 years, nearly 6 years. And we are here at yet another trial for Lori Vallow after she had two in Idaho. One with, well, she had one and her husband had the other. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Interesting day in court. Burger King, Walgreens, Lori's movements, and more. We're going to break it all down tonight. Please let me know where you're watching from. If you have any questions, any comments. Oh, my notepad here just got stuck on my equipment. And we're going to jump right in. Let me get my handy notebook here. We had two witnesses today. And before we got to the witnesses, we're actually going to talk about Lori's. Before we get to the witnesses, and before we got to the witnesses, Lori's having some witness issues of her own. She, well, we'll talk about it here in just a minute. We also have who is left to testify. The state has really buzzed through these witnesses. You think about it. We had 4 days of court last week and 2 days, well, 1.5 really. We got out early today. So we've had 5.5 days of court and we've been through 18 witnesses. They've really been through them, and we'll talk about who's left. Detective Cassandra, oh my gosh, I told them I was corrected. Inclon, am I saying it right? I was saying it wrong last night. I've been saying it wrong forever. What is it about these police officers and their names? In Idaho, it was Kaya Kamanu. And I knew Kaya Kamanu for years, and I still was mispronouncing it till I put it in my phone and I would read it every day. This morning, I put in Cassandra Inclon's name. I think I'm saying it right. I hope I'm saying it right. My apologies to the detective if I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, she took the stand today. Well, she was on the stand again today. She took it yesterday because the state called her and Lori cross-examined her. So we'll hear a little bit more of what she had to say and how that cross-examination went. And we're getting a rare look inside a sidebar because the equipment for the court reporter to hear the sidebar was not working today. So the judge came out after the jury left the room and publicly said what was discussed in that sidebar. We rarely get to hear what's happening in sidebars, but we got to look at it today. Detective Ariel Werther was on the stand. He's the data cell phone guy who was able to track all the locations and GPS movements of Charles's phone. We have a timeline of that morning, that one pivotal hour where that phone went. And of course, we will remember Charles as we talk about him today. I have to address something from last night, an issue with the jury that I teased, that I said, oh, I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I never did. And apparently you all were blowing up the comments. My wife was messaging me like, talk about the juror issue. And I got emails, even Peggy, who's on here every night, was like, the juror issue. I apologize, I didn't address it last night. Let me tell you what happened briefly. So the Social Security guy, Mark Sari, was on the stand yesterday talking about the Social Security benefits that Tylee got and that JJ got and that Lori got after Charles died. Then later on in the day, after he was done, the judge sent all the jurors out, or it was right after lunch, I believe, and he asked juror number 15 to come in. And he said to the juror, did you discuss something about Social Security during the sidebar when the white noise was played during Mark Sari's testimony? And the juror said, yes. I said something about how I'm dealing with Social Security and having an issue, something like that. And then the juror next to him, juror 16, said something about, I can't believe she's getting that much money, meaning Lori. The judge asked juror 15 if those comments would prevent him from being fair and impartial, if they will cloud his judgment. He said no. The judge reminded him they cannot talk about aspects related to the case or the case until it's time to deliberate. He let the juror stay. Then he called in juror 16, the one who apparently made the comments about the money being a lot. And the judge asked him, did you make these comments? He said, yes, I did. The judge reminded him, you cannot talk about the case, aspects related to the case. He apologized, and they are both still on the jury. So that was the juror issue yesterday. We did not lose any more jurors. We did not have any juror issues today. The jurors are paying attention. They are into it. And I want to let you know just what was playing out there in the courthouse, inside the courtroom with the jurors. And also, I think there's some witnesses, they're getting a little tired, the jurors. So it seems. I think they're ready to maybe wrap it up. I don't think that they know, too, that there's 21 witnesses. So they don't know how much longer this is going to go. They were told to keep their calendars clean through like mid-May, but it's going a lot quicker than mid-May. So that was the juror issue today. Now, yesterday, today, the issue, the day started with some issues with Lori's witnesses. And Larry Woodcock got a subpoena in Louisiana. And Larry Woodcock is not on her witness list. Bobby Vallow, Charles's brother, also got a subpoena. He's not on the witness list. This was brought up yesterday. Today, the state brought it up with the judge. I think what's happening is these people are getting these subpoenas and they don't have a number to call, so they're calling the prosecutor. So she brought it to the judge's attention. And here is how that played out this morning when the judge asked Lori what was going on. Lori,
the extent that you have subpoenas for next of kin on either of your
Woodcock got a
cases,
subpoena
you need to coordinate
in Louisiana
the service of those subpoenas through
and
the
Larry
county
Woodcock's
attorney's
not on her
office.
witness
They
list.
can facilitate
Bobby Vallow,
in that
Charles's
and
brother,
getting those
also
people
got a
served
subpoena.
if
He's not on the witness list. This was brought up
they
yesterday.
are
Today, the
indeed
state brought it up with
witnesses that have
the
relevant
judge. I think what's
information in these
happening is these
cases.
people are getting these subpoenas and
And
they
both
don't
of
have a
those
number
people,
to
Your
call, so
Honor,
they're calling the prosecutor.
Robert Vallow
So she
and
brought it to
Larry
the judge's
Woodcock
attention.
were not on my
And
list
here
and were
is
not
how that
intended
played
to
out
be
this
subpoenaed.
morning when the judge
So it
asked
was an
Lori what was
oversight.
going on.
So I don't know
Lori
the extent that
has-
you have subpoenas for next of kin on either of them
Larry
your
Woodcock got a
cases.
subpoena.
You need to coordinate.
in
Someone on your
Louisiana.
team needs to
The
double
service of
check
those
with
subpoenas
OPDS
and
so the correct people are
Larry
being
Woodcock
county
is
attorney's
not on her
office.
witness
They can
list.
facilitate
Bobby Vallow,
in that
Charles's
and
brother,
getting those
also
people
got a
served
subpoena.
if
He's not on the witness list. This was brought up
if they
yesterday.
are
Today, the
indeed
state brought it up
witnesses
with
that have
the
relevant
judge. I think
information.
what's
she's the
happening
one
is these
asking to
people are
send
getting
those
these subpoenas and
And
they
both
don't
of
have a
those
number
people,
to
Your
call, so
Honor,
they're calling the
Oversight.
prosecutor.
Robert Vallow
So she
and
brought it to
Larry
the
Woodcock
judge's
signed them
attention.
were not on my
And
list
here
and were
is
not
how that
intended
played
to be
out this
subpoenaed.
morning when the judge
So it
asked
was an
Lori what was
oversight.
going on.
So I don't know
Lori
the extent that you have
has-
subpoenas for next.
Okay, everybody. I don't know what's happening there. Apparently, you're hearing me twice. Here, I think I know the problem. I apologize. I hope it was just during that sound clip. Now, I don't think you will hear me as much as you may want to hear me in double time. Nobody in the world wants that. I think I figured it out. If I did, it's a miracle because I'm not technical. Here we go. With, again, the issue with Larry Woodcock, and Bobby Vallow getting subpoenas.
The extent that you have subpoenas for next of kin on either of your cases, you need to coordinate the service of those subpoenas through the county attorney's office. They can facilitate in that and getting those people served if they are indeed witnesses that have relevant information in these cases.
And both of those people, Your Honor, Robert Vallow and Larry Woodcock, were not on my list and were not intended to be subpoenaed. So it was an oversight.
So I don't know how OPDS got that information to serve them subpoenas, so someone on your team needs to double check with OPDS that the correct people are being subpoenaed.
And Your Honor, they are signed by the defendant. So
All right.
she is the one who's signing those subpoenas. She is the one acting as counsel. So she is the one asking to send those out.
So how was it an oversight?
I just signed them all and we got them prepared and I signed them all and I did not check them. It's my own fault. But I apologize to the families.
So do you know the names of all the people you subpoenaed, or you just signed a stack of subpoenas?
I did sign the stack, but I thought I was aware of all that they were the ones that I had asked to subpoena.
For this trial or for the next one as well?
Just for this one, we haven't done our subpoenas yet for the next trial.
I'll try. And for the next trial, I need you to be more diligent in what you're signing, and if there is a subpoena for someone who is a next of kin or a victim under the Victims Bill of Rights, the subpoena that needs to be coordinated through county attorney's office, or is there a victim representative attorney? I haven't had one yet.
There is not a victim representative attorney, so it would come through us, Your Honor.
Okay. We sort of addressed the motion in limine yesterday about the questioning of any police personnel regarding the timing of the arrest, why the investigation took as long as it did, who was or wasn't arrested. Again, I'll ask the defendant, if you think those are questions that you need to ask, please ask to take a break first, but otherwise I'm expecting you to not ask those types of questions of any witness. We then
Okay.
have the,
One
let's
more.
take up the Janice Cox and Summer Shiflett video. You've had a chance to review that.
I did.
What's your position on the state's motion?
Your Honor, I obviously think that it should not be precluded, that it is evidence in fact of why that happened on July 11th, that it happened. So if there had been no bat, there would have been no gun. It was a reason why self-defense was even an issue on that day, on July 11th.
Let me make sure I understand the state's position correctly. The state hasn't seen the actual video that these two witnesses have watched.
Correct. It
Right.
apparently
So
was-
absent someone coming in and introducing the actual video into evidence, which could have its own evidentiary issues, but absent that, they can't testify in court about things they saw on a video because it's hearsay. They're testifying to things that they observed outside of court, and there's no verification, no way to cross-examine on that. So my ruling would be that unless some video comes in and someone lays foundation for that video, that no witness would be allowed to discuss what they saw, heard, or viewed in that video.
Okay, there's a couple things there I want to talk about. One is that when the subpoenas went out to Bobby and Larry, they contained their social security numbers. They contained victim information, which is not good because subpoenas are public. And Trina K was saying, I asked for those subpoenas to be sealed. They shouldn't have gone out anyway. You heard Lori then say, well, I just signed them all and I didn't know. And the prosecutor's like, she signed them. It wasn't like someone else signed them. And then the judge hinted at, well, were these for the next trial, already looking ahead? And Lori says, no, we haven't even started to send those out for the next trial. Then this video, which we still don't know what video is being referenced. I know many of you are like, what's this video they're talking about that apparently Summer and Janice have seen that Lori wants brought into the trial and the prosecution does not? And it sounds like the judge is saying at this point, video is not coming in, and maybe down the line if Lori wants to admit it or something. But remember, Lori hasn't submitted an evidence list that we know of, and the witness list is, she's losing witnesses by the day. And that gets to the next point about the witnesses. The judge said, what is the status of your witness list? Underneath my name, which I've been struck, was Vicea. Vicea was one of Tylee's best friends. Also, Ashland Rind, who testified in Idaho, one of Tylee's best friends. The judge, who else did he ask about? Gabe Bonilla, I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. That was Charles and Lori's bishop, was on the list. So the judge is like, all right, let's go through your list and see what the status is. Barry Cox is on there, Summer Shiflett, Janice Cox, they're all on there. Where do they stand now? And here's how Lori responded to those questions from the judge, Bareski.
So it looks like that Ashland Rind was not served or found, that Gabe Bonilla, OPDS, several times tried to serve that subpoena and it has not been served. And I'm not sure on the Barry Cox.
All right, well, as was indicated by the state yesterday, they may be resting their case in chief sometime Thursday, at the latest Monday. So you're kind of out of time on producing these witnesses for interview. I shouldn't say you're kind of out of time. You are out of time. I don't know that I need to effectively preclude them because you haven't been able to serve them or get them to appear, in which case they wouldn't be called as witnesses. In the event that they are served or surfaced, we'd still need to have a discussion of whether they have any relevant information and whether they should still be precluded because of the late disclosure of what that testimony might be. So unless they're produced to the state for an interview here within the next day or two, they would be effectively precluded. Even if they are produced for an interview, they still could be precluded. Zachary Cox, let's talk about Zachary Cox. Has he been subpoenaed? The state has interviewed that witness apparently, but based on their motion, they don't believe he has any relevant information to offer for this trial. Do you believe he has relevant information to offer?
I do, Your Honor.
And what is that?
He was with my brother, Adam Cox, that day on the 11th, and was in communication with Adam and Charles during that day and prior to that day.
At Grainger, we have over 1 million products, including the one.
I don't know what happened there. Commercial. Don't go to Grainger unless you need some tools. So basically, the judge is saying, how are these witnesses going to be able to help your defense? What relevance do they have? Lori says that Zach Cox's a version of what happened counters Adam Cox's. And we're going to see where this goes. We're going to see where this goes. Next week is bound to be very interesting. I say next week, but really the state could rest, and Trina K suggested that the state could rest as early as tomorrow. There are 3 witnesses left for the state. Here's who they are. We have retired Detective Jason Hunsaker from Chandler Police, Detective Nathan Moffat, who was the original case agent, and Detective Nathan Duncan. 2 Nathans, never any confusion. Ironically, we have 2 Nates at East Idaho News. Many of you have been emailing the other Nate. In fact, the other day, he messaged me and he said, why am I getting a bunch of 10-second videos of mainly women telling me about Lori's case? I'm like, oh, send those to me. I need those. So there's Nate Sunderland, Nate Eaton. I'm Nate Eaton, by the way. Nathan Moffat and Nathan Duncan will be testifying. Duncan was supposed to testify today. He has been ill. He was not in court yesterday. He did come this morning for a few hours and then left. So we expect that, assuming he's all better, he'll be on the stand first thing tomorrow. It is possible that they could go through these 3 witnesses tomorrow on Wednesday, and then the defense starts Thursday. And we have no idea what's going to happen with the defense. So will be interesting to watch. But speaking of the defense, their defense attorney, Lori Daybell herself, was back at it cross-examining Detective Youngclon. And she began by asking her about the chain of custody of Charles's phone, where the phone went after it was given to the cops. Remember, Lori left with the phone. We'll talk about that in a minute. Drove around for the hour, did some errands, took JJ to school, came back, then kept Charles's phone the remainder of the day. The detective did not know about this phone activity, did not know that Lori had 2 phones of her own until later on in the day when she gets back to the house and they're like, we need Charles Vallow's phone. Where's his phone? They call Lori. Lori shows up at the scene. The phone's in the cup holder. She hands it over. They give her the pin 0000. And Lori asks, did you look at any messages on the phone? The detective said, no, I didn't look at any messages. I took the phone. I took it to the police station. I handed it over to the computer unit. Didn't even type in the passcode, nothing. I put a sticky note with the passcode on it and handed it to them. The questions that Lori then proceeded to ask was about the phones. Lori's phones, Charles's phone, and here's how that back and forth went.
Were you aware of the reason why I had 2 phones at the time?
I was not.
Did you ask me?
No, I wasn't aware you had 2 phones.
In the course of your investigation, did you ever learn that Charles had stolen my phone, so I had to replace it?
Can I object to testifying and move to strike?
Sustained.
Your Honor, it's all part of the investigation.
You want to object again?
Sustained, it's testimony. The form of the question was testimony.
Were you aware that after he gave it back to me that I kept both phones?
I'm going to again object.
Sustained.
Detective, in the course of your investigation, did you learn that Charles had a $2 million life insurance policy on me?
I knew there was a life insurance policy. I don't know the amount.
Did you ever see it in any of the reports or?
I did not review, and I was not part of that portion of the investigation.
The thing I wonder is Lori has said repeatedly that Charles had a $2 million life insurance policy out on her. From the way I understand it, I've got life insurance. My wife has life insurance. We talked about the policy, but it's Erica's policy. It's hers. Granted, I'm the beneficiary, but she had to sign it. When I got my life insurance, I had to have like a health exam. And we know with Tammy Daybell and Chad Daybell's case in Idaho, Tammy and Chad both signed it. So when she says he had a $2 million life insurance policy out on me, in one way, many of you have said it sounds like she's making it appear that he just took out this policy and didn't tell Lori. And then I don't know why she's going down that road. Was he planning to kill her? I don't know. Maybe she's trying to insinuate or get in that she was scared for her life, he was dangerous, and was after her for the $2 million. I don't know. Or is trying to muddy the waters. Lori then proceeded to ask the detective about a news release that went out and was talking about the fact that just one moment. Okay. I don't know why Peggy is sending me these messages. Do I need to be aware? If you all can see me, I think we're good. So Lori went on to talk about a news release that there went out. And this news release, she was asking the detective if the detective had any input into the news release. And the detective said, no, there's a PIO for the department. Sometimes they do consult the detectives when a press release is sent out, but not in this case. Now, here was an interesting part today. I want you to listen closely to this question. It's short, and I want you to see if you pick up. It's about JJ. I want you to listen to how Lori asked the question.
Did you learn in the course of your investigation that JJ had autism?
Yes, you told me about that.
Did you verify that at his school?
I did speak with his school, yes.
When did you speak with the school?
During the course of the investigation, I had contact with the school in reference to when he attended and generally kind of the services the school provides.
Did you catch the question? Are you aware that JJ had autism? Not has, had autism. An interesting clue there if the jury picked up on it. Now, if autism was a condition you could outgrow, maybe that would make a little bit more sense of, he had it when he was a kid, now he doesn't. Maybe that's how a juror might take it. But that was an interesting thing that she spoke of it in past tense, and the jury could have picked up on it. Well, then the Burger King trip is brought up. And this was an interesting line of questioning that I know in the courtroom brought out some smiles and some interesting looks about where Lori was going with it and the drinks that she ordered. And I'm just going to play it out for you.
During this investigation, did you verify that we did in fact go through Burger King?
I did not, but it was verified.
Were you aware of what we ordered at Burger King?
You told me it was chicken fries and Sprite.
Had you seen, you hadn't seen that receipt?
I had not.
Okay. We watched yesterday, is that correct?
Correct, you told me that in the interview.
So were you aware that we also ordered 2 bottles of water?
I was not aware, no.
And in your experience with people in stressful situations, when adrenaline kicks in, does it make you incredibly thirsty?
I don't object to speculation or knowledge.
If she knows, she can answer.
It can.
And when you're in fight or flight mode, does your adrenaline kick in your experience?
I'm going to object here to knowledge and foundation as to her knowledge of this.
I'll sustain the objection.
Did you offer Tylee and I apple juice at the Chandler Police Station?
I think I offered you something to drink and what we typically would have there.
Did you offer that for the purpose that adrenaline makes you thirsty?
No, I usually do it to people I interview if they'd like something to drink while they're there.
Detective Inkland, have you ever seen me not calm?
I would object to maybe foundation as to when.
All right, sustain, lay more foundation on when she has, at what occasions she has had to observe you.
Well, yesterday, you spoke often of my calm demeanor, my nonchalantness. Is that correct?
Correct.
So has there ever been an occasion when you have seen me when I was not calm?
Again, foundation as to when she has seen her on July 11th.
Please clarify the time frame you're referring to where she had an opportunity to observe you.
Any other time, Your Honor?
For example, how many hours on July?
Can we have a sidebar? Can I ask you a question?
So somebody mentioned to me that Lori reminds them, this is them saying, not me, that of their teenage daughter. And the judge kind of reminds them of the dad. Like, Your Honor, come on. Nope. Sustained. So she insinuated that I guess she needed the 2 bottles of water because she was adrenaline. She needed drinks, that when people get in stressful situations, they need to be hydrated. Interesting line of questioning there. And then it seemed like Lori was going to go down the path that the judge had said, if you're going to go down that path, talk to me. So they went into a sidebar and talked, and then Lori changed her line of questioning after that. When they came back, she asked repeatedly, a couple times at least, was I cooperative with you? Did I cooperate with you? Did I answer all your questions? And the detective said yes. And you heard in this line of questioning, as what Lori Daybell has done with other witnesses, she has said, was I calm? Was the scene calm? Were the police calm? Were the fire department calm? Things like that, things according to that. And they always say yes. And here is how Trina Kay followed up on redirect with the detective and that line of questioning.
Did Lori Vallow's behavior stand out to you?
It did.
Why?
So based on what was going on, that we had a homicide, her husband had been shot and killed, her brother was the one who shot and killed her husband, it was inside her home, her children were at least partially present to this event, her demeanor seemed odd given what was going on at the house that day.
So throughout this time, you're just noting her demeanor, right?
Correct.
You were asked about whether or not you were calm at the scene. Do you recall being asked that on cross?
I believe so.
Had you just seen your husband get shot
No,
inside your own home
no,
by your brother?
no,
You were asked if the other officers at the scene were calm. You recall being asked that?
I do.
Were you aware of any of them having just seen their significant others being shot
No,
by a family member
no,
inside their own home
no,
with their children present?
no.
So would it be difficult to compare the demeanor of the officers and yourself with that of, say, Alex or Tylee or the defendant?
It would be difficult comparison.
Not the same situation.
No.
When that line of questioning was going on, a woman in front of me in the row, I saw her go, yes. So then we had some questions from the jury and about this. In fact, there were several, and I'm just going to let the judge, because sometimes it's up to the judge and the defense and the prosecution. If they all agree that the questions should come in, they are allowed in. If there's debate, they can debate why, yes, it should come in, no, it shouldn't come in. And sometimes the judge goes with the yes, sometimes he goes with the no's. This time we heard several of those questions from the jurors, and here's what they asked.
Was the rent-a-car vehicle ever searched?
I do not believe so, but I'm not certain.
All right. Question form number 12. If the defendant and her daughter were interviewed as witnesses, why were they left with a victim advocate? In other words, were they considered victims or witnesses?
So our victim services section, I introduced Lori to them specifically because there are civilian employees that work within our police department that can help families with death investigations for the issues that come up afterwards and kind of navigating that process. So although they might not be classified under like state law as victims, our victim services section will often help our families with like specific crisis type events and navigating that process. So we use them quite a bit in our death investigations.
All right, on question form number 13, did Lori express concerns about police talking with Tylee at the time of the interview?
She did not.
Does law enforcement have to advise interviewees they are being audio and or video recorded?
They do not. There is no expectation of privacy within a police station.
Interesting. I did not know that. So there's no expectation of privacy at a police station. And interesting that the jury said, did Lori, because Lori seemed to be going down the line of questioning that she was concerned that Tylee was being questioned there at the police department. Today, she's concerned about that. But the jury asked, did Lori express any concern about her getting interviewed that day? And there was none. And if you look at the videos, which we have the whole things posted, the jury hasn't seen those, obviously, the whole things. Lori seems very okay with it. She's not like saying, I want an attorney or don't talk to my daughter. She seems to be just okay with it. All right, I mentioned a minute ago that we actually get to hear a sidebar. And the reason for that is how it's been working thus far in this trial, kind of working because half the time it seems the equipment doesn't work, is because Lori cannot approach the bench because she's a convicted felon and the defendant, they put on headsets. And then they talk with each other, the prosecutor, the defense, the judge, and white noise is played in the courtroom so we can't hear it. They had an issue with that today. So and then the court reporter also hears it, but the court reporter has to keep a record of this, and the court reporter could not get into this sidebar. The headphones weren't working, so the judge held the sidebar at the bench. Lori did go up to the bench and talk with them, and then the judge, after dismissing the jury, kind of summarized what happened during the sidebar, and it's kind of interesting to hear. So here's what he said.
At that sidebar, the defendant indicated she wanted to question the witness further regarding how many times the witness had observed her and her demeanor, which would necessitate the witness talking about observing her here in this trial, observing her on July 11th of 2019, as well as the trial in Idaho, and possible viewing of interviews or social media posts. I advised the defendant that this is probably not a door she wants to open because the setting of those interviews would be relevant. For example, someone appearing in court intuitively might behave better than someone who's not appearing in court or in a trial. And the defendant said she would move on from that area. Is that an accurate recitation of the sidebar from the state's perspective?
Yes, Your Honor.
From the defendant's perspective?
Yes, Your Honor, that's fine.
All right, and then we did another sidebar regarding jury questions at 11:01 a.m. The first question, juror question number 10, as a detective, does your subconscious mind use a witness demeanor as any type of evidence? The parties agreed with me that that's probably not an appropriate question to ask, so it was not asked. Juror form question number 11 was asked. That was the question as to whether the rental car was ever searched. Juror question 12 was also asked I should mention, by agreement of the parties. And this was the question if the defendant and her daughter were interviewed as witnesses, and the explanation between being interviewed or considered a victim versus a witness, which the witness answered. Question form 13 had 4 questions on it. The first question was not asked. Did Lori ever ask for an attorney during interviews of her and Ty Lee? The second question, did Lori express concerns about police talking with Ty Lee at the time of the interview? Neither side objected to that question, so it was asked. Question number 3 on form 13, do police need parental consent to speak with a minor even if being treated as a witness? Which the answer really is it depends, but it calls for a legal conclusion too for that witness. The state objected to it. The defendant did not. I didn't think it would be helpful with the jury in deciding any issue that's at fact in this case, so it was not asked. And then the fourth question on that form number 13, does law enforcement have to advise interviewees they are being audio and video recorded? Neither side objected to that, and that question was asked. Is that an accurate representation of the sidebar we had at 11:01
Yes, Your Honor.
from the defense perspective?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so let's give the court reporter a break. We'll resume soon, probably about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we'll...
So that kind of gives you a synopsis of how that sidebar went. It would be so fascinating to be in those sidebars, to hear them. We heard a lot of sidebars in Chad's trial in Idaho and Lori's trial. It seemed like Chad, there was a lot of sidebars. And again, in Idaho, they played the white noise, but they would huddle in the corner. Sometimes they would go into chambers to talk about that. Next, so then she was done with her testimony, and we have the whole thing if you want to go watch it on East Idaho News, our YouTube channel. Then it was time for Detective Ariel Werther. We've heard from this guy twice before. He put together the fancy maps that mapped out Charles's device, the movements of Charles's device during that 1 hour. By using the GPS cell phone location data, which Charles had activated on his phone. Do you have yours activated, by the way? I don't have mine activated on my phone, but it turned out to be a big thing in this case for him. He actually was shadowing that day. He was shadowing another detective, and they went out to the scene, went to the house, was kind of, there to observe. And then the next day, they were working on this case, and they realized they didn't have the biographical information they needed for JJ, like his date of birth, and he was the son of the man who was shot. So they needed to get that information. So Werther volunteered to call up Lori and get that information. He then today in court admitted a PowerPoint. You can watch the whole thing on our channel if you want. It kind of shows the pinpoints of where the phone went that morning. And what I've done is I've broken it down into a timeline rather than show you the maps, because it did take some time. It was a little lengthy. Let me just walk this through with you. 7:16, Charles Vallow is staying at the True Hilton. He'd flown into town. He was going to go pick up JJ, take JJ to school, pick him up from the house, spend a few days in Arizona. Lori had booked him that hotel. He was checked into the hotel. His phone device was at the Hilton. Between 7:16 and 7:31, the phone is traveling from the Hilton to the house. In less than 30 minutes, Charles would be dead. Isn't that wild to think about? At 7:37, the last outgoing message is sent from Charles's phone. I believe it was sent to Adam Cox, not Alex, Adam Cox. So it takes him about 15 minutes to get from the hotel to the house. He sends a text message about 6 minutes later. Between 7:37 and 7:49, the device is in the area of the house. 7:50, it leaves the area of the house. 7:52, Alex calls Lori. 2 minutes after Lori leaves the house with the phone, her brother calls. 7:54, Burger King. 7:56, the device leaves Burger King. 8:16, the device visits Walgreens. 8:17 to 8:33, the device is at the area of JJ's school. At 8:36, the 911 call is received at the police department. So that is about an hour after Charles's device arrived at the home. After the Burger King visit, after Walgreens, after going to the school, 911 is called. Police arrive at the home around 8:41, 8:42. So within 5 minutes of that 911 call, the cops are at the house. Lori arrives at the house at 8:48. Here, I'm going to take my thing off. Sorry, the lower corner is covering that. But 8:48, Lori arrives at the house. So Detective Ariel plotted all that on maps with pins and different colors of like bubbles signifying Lori's phone, her two phones. She had a T-Mobile and a Verizon. One color signified one, the other color signified the other. And then Charles's phone had one color, and then Alex's phone had one color. Let me go through that really quick. Again, 7:16, True Hilton leaves the hotel, gets to the house by 7:31. The last outgoing message is sent at 7:37. Between 7:37 and 7:49, the phone is in the area of the house. So whatever was happening during that 11 minutes, the shooting, whatever it was, the phone's there. It leaves the house, the area at 7:50. 2 minutes later, Alex calls Lori. Burger King visit, followed by leaving the Burger King, visiting the Walgreens, going to JJ's school. The 911 call is finally made at 8:36. 8:41 to 8:42, the police arrive. Lori arrives back at the house at 8:48. The police have been at the house less than 10 minutes when Lori arrives back home. Detective Werther looked at all this and he thought, wait a sec. Remember, originally, the story was that they called 911 and then Lori left to take the kids to school, left to take JJ to school, and that she stopped at Burger King and Walgreens on the way. But hold up, how are you going to call 911 at 8:36 and have Lori back at the house 11 minutes later after visiting the fast food restaurant, the Walgreens, and the school? Werther knew, based on traffic patterns, based on the distances, that there's no way you could do that in 11 minutes. I did that drive a few weeks ago in mid-afternoon when there was no traffic. And I think total, it took me 25 minutes. I mean, I did stop and I recorded video, but to do it in 12, you'd have to have no traffic and just quickly go. We saw the Burger King receipt. We've seen this before. Chicken nuggets, chicken fries, a Sprite, a small Sprite. Looks like they ordered the value Sprite and then upsized it to a small, and the bottled water, which people order when they're full of adrenaline, apparently. Then we saw the video. We've seen this video before, but I'm going to play it. There is the SUV, the rental car that Charles had, the red one, pulling up to the Burger King drive-thru at 7:54. You can see the timestamp at the top of the screen. Detective Werther went to the restaurant, got this video, and then compared the timestamp on the video to the timestamp on Charles's phone when it said that when it said his device was going through the drive-thru. They order, and then just a minute here, we will see when the interior shot from the restaurant, he was able to get the video from the outside, and then let me just skip ahead here to the inside. There we go. You can see, let me just rewind it just a little bit. There we go. You can see Lori pull up, and they couldn't tell 100% who was in the passenger seat, but he did say it was a juvenile with short brown hair. There's Lori waiting for the food. The employee comes out in just a second with the food, hands it over, but that is a very clear shot of Lori Vallow. If you're watching on a phone, it's kind of hard to see, but on a big screen, you can probably see it there. They're getting the Sprite. They're at the restaurant. I think a total of, was it 2 minutes? She gets the money. I'll fast forward here. They give her the food. Window is closed, and then they pull away. The next stop is the Walgreens. Here's something kind of humorous. originally, Detective Werther said that he was told she stopped at a CVS. So he went to 7 CVS stores, and none of them had any video, photos, nothing that matched Lori visiting the CVS. Well, then looking at Charles's GPS data, he said, no, wait, that looks like he actually went to a Walgreens. So instead of going to the Walgreens, he called them. Saved himself a trip. Trina mentioned that, Trina K. And they said, yeah, we have video, and you can come and look at it. Now, I want you to look closely. Lori has said that she needed to stop at Walgreens to get flip-flops because it was hot asphalt and it was Phoenix in July. But I think she's wearing shoes when she walks into the store. Look at the video with me and tell me if you can see. Oh, shoot. I meant to pause it. I'm going to try to pause. Is she wearing... That looks like... It moves so quick. Let me just rewind it. There we go. It looks like she has a shoe on at least the 1 foot. So I don't know if more will come into that, but she said I needed to stop and get shoes. And that's right where it starts. I can't rewind it a little bit just to see. Let me play out the video though. Tell me, do you think she has shoes on? Let me just play the video. Here she is walking in the store. It's now 8:16. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, the door closes. Then we cut to a shot here where she's buying the shoes at the cash register. Here in just a second. Let me pick it up. There we go. She goes up to buy the shoes. There's 2 pairs. And she asks for, I believe, them to cut off the tags with some scissors. Yep, she got the scissors. You know, maybe it's possible that she said she was buying these shoes, one for JJ and one for Tylee. I don't recall hearing that. From what I heard, it was that she needed to get the shoes and that Tylee needed to get the shoes because it was hot. It was a hot summer day. So she gets the shoes. Unfortunately, we can't see her feet in this shot, but takes off the tags to be worn, and then she leaves the Walgreens. Again, the map was shown. You can, by the way, watch the whole video. And I think this is the first time many of you have seen this. They showed this in Lori's trial in Idaho. So I had seen it before, but I think for many of you, this was the first time that you'd actually seen it, unless you were in the courtroom that day, because there were no cameras in Lori's case in Idaho. Then it came time for Lori to question Detective Werther, and she went down an interesting path that didn't get her very far. With the judge, with Trina K, with the objections. Here's how that questioning went.
You found some interestingly contrasting things in your report that you reported on that date. You made a note of his daily text message of love and devotion to me. Do you remember that?
I do not.
Okay. Then you also made a note of his interactions with women he was attempting to date. Is that correct?
I do remember that.
Okay. Detective Werther, in your report on page 103, you indicate that Charles went to the airport to meet Florence Hughes and found that she
Object to
never boarded.
relevance.
Is that correct?
Hold on.
Object to relevance.
What's the relevance of that?
It's just in his report, Your Honor, and I was just going over it to see if...
Well, everything in a police report isn't necessarily relevant. Well, how's it relevant to this case?
It's relevant to show what was going on in this, right before this happened. These events happened within June and July.
All right, it's the objection sustained.
Did you learn who Florence Hughes was?
Now I'm going to object again to relevance.
Sustained.
In your report, Detective, you find evidence that Charles did in fact send someone $1,000.
Now I object to relevance again.
Sustained.
Now I would object to relevance to all of these types of questions.
When you had,
We'll pause it there. Detective Werther went on to explain that he pulled, as he was going through all the cell phone data, the GPS locations in the phone, if there was something he thought might be of interest to the detectives, the main detectives, he pulled it out. So that information that Lori brought up about women that Charles was apparently allegedly trying to date, he pulled that out like, this might be of help for you. He didn't know what was relevant in the investigation at the time or was not, what was or was not. It's interesting that Lori's going down this path again with, Charles seeing these other women. Granted, it's struck from the record, but it is said and you hear it. And the detective went on to say that he, didn't read through all the text messages and whatnot. His main thing was to look at the location data. And then Lori had nothing further to ask him, and we didn't have any juror questions with this witness. And then we were done for the day. So that is what happened today during court. Tomorrow, as I told you, there's 3 more witnesses left. And we'll see if Detective Nathan Duncan is back to take the stand tomorrow morning. Hopefully he's feeling better and can testify. I do want to thank our sponsor today, Alan Browning with Browning Law in Idaho Falls. They are working to make it possible for us to bring you Courtroom Insider. We thank them. Also, shout out to Teton Toyota. They got me my wheels here. I drive that beautiful Toyota Prius. I've only had to fill it up like twice. If you need to rent a car and you're in Idaho Falls, give them a call. They'll help you out. And I'm not getting paid to say that or anything. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. Okay, I think we're ready for shout-outs. You guys ready for shout-outs? Before we do that, though, before we do shout-outs, we have to remember Charles Vallow, who was unfortunately killed almost 6 years ago on a hot July day. And we pause tonight to remember him, his sons, to remember JJ and Tylee, and the families that have been affected by this. Okay, everybody, let me go through our questions for you. First of all, the shout outs. Oh my gosh, I have to shout you all out because last night during Courtroom Insider, the East Idaho News YouTube channel hit 500,000 subscribers on my birthday during Courtroom Insider. Did you all plan that? Because that really, I didn't realize that until last night late. Like after I was all done and getting ready for bed, I checked. And I just have to thank you all so much. When we launched East Idaho News 10 years ago, I was told by some people, don't worry about YouTube because YouTube will take people away from your website. And you want people to go to East Idaho News. You don't want them to go to YouTube. Well, you came to YouTube, and I said, no, we got to do YouTube. We have to do YouTube. Look at the number today, you guys. Right now, 501,337. So just today, we gained 1,300 new subscribers. I don't know where you all are from, but it's amazing to me. Oh, hey, look, that happened live. We just gained one more. So thank you. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed and you hit the button, that number might go up. And I just ask you 500,000 thanks. Look, it just went up to 340. I told Peggy and my team at work that I think when this trial's over and I'm back in Idaho Falls, we need to do like an ultimate t-shirt special for just the YouTube people. Something like a sale or a promotion or something and give away stuff. And anyway, just to thank you all. And the numbers keep coming in. And again, I can't thank you enough for supporting East Idaho News. You all get the biggest shout out that I can say. So just thank you, thank you, thank you. Annie Carty from Glasgow, Scotland. Annie, thanks for watching. Emily, Rebecca, Amy May, Paul Sorensen, Sandra Hill, Lori Armstrong, Kokomo, Cindy Johnson, Teresa Baker, and Mike Perkins. Thank you all so much. I have one other shout out. Somebody was kind enough to send me something last night, and I want to thank them. I need to find it in my email. Here we go. From Linda Whiteside. Thank you very much, Linda, for your gift, and I appreciate it very much. All right, here we go with the cities you're watching from. Boston, Southwest. I got to put this on you guys because these numbers just keep climbing. Here, we'll do a double box. I'll be in the bottom. or the top or over here? What do you like? I'll be over here. Look at those numbers. That's crazy. We have Boston, Southwest France, wish I knew French, Norway. My dad lived in Norway, and my mom and dad actually went back to Norway a year or two ago to explore. Sweden, South Africa, Western Australia, Finland, Denmark, Portugal, Scotland, UK, London. We need to do a map from where you're all watching from. Thank you all very much for watching and your support. Okay, Glenn, why is Lori allowed to ask questions to the witness that was not brought up by the prosecution? In Idaho cases, if she tried that, the prosecution would object to it as to not being in the scope. Good question, Glenn. It's possible that they set some conditions to save her recalling the same witnesses. So if Lori, they might be like, you know what, if she's going to ask her questions, let's just get them out of the way now, because she could potentially on the defense recall them and then ask these questions. Or it's possible the prosecution is saying, let's see where she's going to go. Let's figure out what she's doing. It's kind of Rachel Smith told us this, the special prosecutor. It's kind of this fine line to walk, jumping in versus letting her talk. So I think that's kind of where they're going. But yeah, you can technically say that she's beyond the scope. And Lori, well, wait, didn't Lori object? Yeah, Lori did object the other day to questions being beyond the scope on redirect. And the judge let the questioning continue to happen, but then he did give Lori a chance to say, you know what, if you want to get up and ask further questions, you can. Ashley, will the prosecutor be allowed to bring up Alex's prior attacks on Lori's other husband, Joseph Ryan, before she met Chad? No, and they weren't allowed in Idaho either, at least not that I know of. Again, it's the same reason why they can't bring up, well, actually, this was Alex. I don't know if Alex isn't on trial here. So unless Lori somehow orchestrated that and was maybe found guilty of a crime, which she has not been, I don't know how relevant it would be into this trial. What happens if the jury thinks that Lori is insane? Then what happens? Angie says, well, if the jury gets back there to deliberate and they say she's clearly insane or mentally unstable, and some of the jurors say, I cannot find her guilty because of that, and the rest of the jurors are like, no, she's guilty, and they argue long enough or discuss it, it could be a hung jury, and then there'd be a whole new trial. Or her defense is not insanity, it's not being mentally ill. Competency has never been an issue in this trial. So they have to make a decision putting that aside, that in Idaho, and I believe it's in Arizona too, but in Idaho, the rules are very simple. To be competent, you have to understand the charges against you. You have to assist in your defense. That's it. Lori clearly understands the charges, and she clearly is assisting in her defense as she's running it. So I don't know how that whole thing could come into play. Is Lori standing at the podium or leaning? From my view, she isn't standing up straight, but kind of looks like she isn't able to stand straight. She is leaning on the podium. She leans to the right, kind of with her back this way. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen her stand for a long period of time. When she walks in, she walks normal. I imagine that belt she's wearing might be a little heavy. That's why I believe she untucks her shirt and jacket to kind of cover it up. So it's possible that she is leaning because of the weight of the belt, but that's just my speculation. But yeah, she does lean. Does Lori tend to turn away from the jury when she's at the podium? Yeah, someone just asked that. It seems that she's turning her back, or at least her shoulder is turned away from the jury. What she does is, it's kind of like, I don't know if you can see, it's kind of like she's got her notebook and she's kind of like leaning this way, taking notes, looking up, taking notes, and the jury's here. I guess she could shift to the other side and face the jury more. I haven't seen her face the jury much, even when the other witnesses are on the stand or the prosecution's talking, but she could potentially do that. Was the baseball bat tested for blood? There was no blood on the bat. Annie asks. We were told that there wasn't any, but it was tested for DNA. We don't know the results of that DNA, and it sounds like they were inconclusive if it was, because it hasn't been brought in at the trial. The only sort of evidence or real solid testimony we've heard about the bat was the prints, the two prints that were on it from a thumb or a finger, and those were inconclusive as far as who they were. Are the questions that the jury asking but the judge is not making public? Well, the judge made a few of them public today. We just talked about that, obviously, but on the others, no, we won't know. I guess maybe when the trial's over, you could request a reporter's transcript of the trial, and they might be in there, unless the judge seals it, but I don't think he would. Danae asks if Adam Cox attended any of Lori's other trials. If he did, I'll just tell you he didn't. He hasn't. And he only came the one day to testify, and that was it. At the time of Charles's death, did he know about Chad? Liz asked. Yes, he did. In fact, he had confronted Lori within the previous weeks about the email, the fake email he got, pretending to be Chad, saying, hey, I want to come out and write your biography. Or wait, no. Charles sent the email allegedly to Chad saying, I want you to come to Texas and write my biography, and it'll be awesome, and you're such a great writer. And then Chad probably told his wife, and then Chad went out to Texas, Texas or Houston. Sorry, Phoenix. Sorry, I'm looking out my window, and there's a lot of police lights going down the street. What's going on? I don't hear sirens. I just see lights. I'll have to go investigate when we're done. And if it's something big, I'll go live. You can come with me. Yes, he did know about the affair. And he had confronted Lori about it, and she denied it and said, Tammy's my friend, and Chad's my friend, and leave us alone. Do you think Dina says, do you think Tylee was told what to say at the police station regarding Charles coming at them with the bat? Otherwise, why would she go along with that story? Well, it's possible it happened. It's possible they set up Charles. I don't know if Charles would chase around the house with a bat trying to get his phone. But I don't know. It would be fascinating to hear Tylee's version of events. Why do you think Chad was never charged with conspiracy in Charles's murder? Good question. They did investigate, and the prosecutor came out years ago and said, we don't believe there is enough evidence that a jury would find him guilty. He was just far enough removed to not be tried. It wasn't strong enough. It wasn't solid enough. But could you imagine if it was, and we had another Daybell trial here for Chad? Is anyone in touch with Chad on death row? Is he aware of Lori representing herself? I'm told he is aware of that Lori's representing herself, and he is in touch with his family. Excuse me. Sissy asked, did Lori look at the autopsy photos? She did. From what I could see, she did. In Idaho, she did not look at the autopsy photos of her children or Tammy. But, maybe she looked at Tammy. I know she did not look at her kids. Angel says, I'm wondering if after the trial, you could follow up with the Chandler police in regard to Charles's phone. Did they not search his recent texts and calls? If they did, why didn't they feel they needed to speak with Adam or Nancy Joe, especially consider Adam's last text was, they are planning something? That's a good question. I could ask that and see. That would be good to find out. Good idea, Angel. Jody says, I'm curious your thoughts about the differences between Idaho juries and in Arizona. Seems like Arizona has issues with the jurors arriving late, texting on their phones, talking between themselves. Well, many people have noticed that, and it's very different. Here, it's far more relaxed, not as strict. The jurors park at a off-site from what I hear, and they do come in, but not all together. It's just like a jury bus. There's so many jurors. There's a massive juror room in the courthouse on the bottom floor that potential jurors show up for. They go on their own at lunch. They go home on their own. They're not, it's different. You're right. They're allowed to have their phones. They go buy their own lunch. The one other thing too, the judge will say, remember that admonition to avoid media and avoid talking about it. But Judge Boyce would be very firm with the jurors and say, I want to remind you not to talk about it, especially before a weekend. And then before they arrive, they would all sign the admonition that they had not consumed any media or things like that. So it's different. I think if it was, this one's pretty high profile. I did hear that the Jodi Arias case, they did kind of keep them together and had security with them. But you have to really be careful because you see the jurors out and about. We walk out of the courtroom and then all the jurors walk out. So you can't be talking about stuff or they could hear it and they have to report it. I was recording a little audio interview today with Dateline, which, by the way, on their weekly show on Thursday, that will be coming out, just kind of an update on the case. And a juror was walking by to go to lunch. And I was far down from the courthouse and I had to stop and say, just a minute. I don't want him to overhear me. And then kept going. So there are definite differences in courtroom decorum. Also, the amount of deputies. In Idaho, there were like 5 or 6 deputies in the courtroom, and they would say, all rise for the jury, all rise for the judge. That's not how it is in Arizona. There's one deputy in there close to Lori, and the judge's assistant clerk, she's the one that says all rise. So yeah, it's quite different. And I just think that that's just how it is. And maybe because they have so many cases, I think I was told there was like 67 judges or something in Maricopa. Maybe it's 98. It's got to be more than that. I mean, there's just so many here. So yeah, that could be the just differences. I have to say something before we go. I want to let you all know, especially if you're in Arizona, that sophisticated scammers are targeting potential jurors. I got this news tip today from Maricopa County. The Judicial Branch of Arizona and Maricopa County is warning residents of an ongoing nationwide jury scam. Listen up, you could be anywhere. Maricopa's getting the word out. It's defrauding people of thousands of dollars across the country, and it's affecting jurors in Maricopa County. Scammers place calls or send emails representing themselves as law enforcement, and they threaten fines, fees, and jail time for individuals who miss jury service. They say they missed jury service. They may also give people a fake law enforcement badge number and case number. Their motive is to create a sense of urgency and panic, pressuring people to respond quickly and provide personal information and money. The scammers typically demand payment via prepaid debit cards or even Bitcoin for missing jury duty. Ding, 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 red flag. Don't fall for that. These scams have been happening for years. However, they're on the rise and becoming more sophisticated. The fraudsters are using real law enforcement identities and badge numbers. They also manipulate the caller ID to reflect an actual law enforcement agency. I've had this happen to me on my work phone at East Idaho News. It wasn't a jury scam, but it said Bonneville County Sheriff, and I picked it up, and it was not that. So if you miss jury duty, well, here's how you can remember 3 things. Courts don't ask for immediate payment over the phone or on email. They're not going to ask you to pay. They're not going to ask you to pay for Bitcoin. They're not going to ask you to go to Walgreens to pick up gift cards or flip-flops. If you need to go pick up flip-flops, don't get the gift card for the scammer. Only scammers will insist you pay with gift cards, a payment app, cryptocurrency, or wire transfer because you can't get it back. Courts do not ask for sensitive personal information over the phone like your social security number. Individuals who receive a call, if you get a call like this, hang up. Do not respond. Delete the email. Instead, write down the phone number, contact law enforcement or the jury office immediately. In Maricopa County, you can look it up online. Wherever you're at, call your local jury office and say, is this true? Did I really miss jury duty? If you did miss jury duty, you would get a notice through the mail, and you would likely be asked to reschedule. And then fines would be given by a judge in a courtroom, not on Bitcoin. The court would then reach out asking you to call and set up a new date. So the court in Maricopa asked if I would share the word with you because this is such a big deal. I don't want any of you to get scammed. And I know when you get those things, they look real. I got to tell you, I'm in news. I cover scams all the time. I went to Adele with my wife. No. I went to Vegas with my wife 2 years ago to see Ed Sheeran. 2 hours before the show, he canceled. So we're like, because of a stage issue. So we're like, what are we going to do? Well, what else is happening in town? We pull up our phone. Adele is playing. We're like, maybe we can get tickets to Adele if it's cheap. We go down to Caesar's Palace where she's performing. Sold out. We go up to the ticket box office. They're like, nope, no tickets. I tweet on my X account, my verified X News account. Hey, anybody in Vegas happen to have tickets for Adele tonight? Something like that. Hoping one of you might be like, yeah, I got some extra. I send the tweet. About 5 minutes later, I get a DM. Hey, my friend has 2 tickets for Adele in Vegas. Do you want them? For $500 each. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not spending $500 on tickets. And the person sends me a screenshot of movement that says, here are the seats. And they show me the seats on the thing. And I look and I'm like, oh, those are pretty good seats. They're up front. And she goes, there's 2 together. And I said, I really don't want to pay $500. And she's like, well, what's the most you'll pay? I'm like, maybe 300 each. And Erica's like, we're not paying that for Adele when we had just paid like $99 for Ed Sheeran. But we were in Vegas. I'm like, oh, let's see. So they say we can do 300. The concert's starting in 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, will you take Venmo? They said, we don't take Venmo, we take Zelle. I've never used Zelle. I'm like, I don't have Zelle. I'm not going to use Zelle. And they're like, well, let me check if we can take Venmo. And then they're like, do you want the tickets or not? I have other people that want them. It's creating a sense of urgency. Concert starting in 10 minutes. These are really good seats. Meanwhile, we're walking back to Caesar's Palace because once I get the tickets, we're going to go in the arena. We walk back. We're standing in front of the arena. And there's a lady there that's like, are you guys looking for tickets? I have one. Do you want one? I'm like, no, I think I have someone that bought two. She's like, wait, do not do that. If you do that, if someone really had 2 tickets to sell on the 4th row, they're not going to be $350, and they're going to be here trying to get rid of them to all these people waiting to get tickets. And I was this close. If it had been Venmo, I would have probably sent the money, and my wife would have killed me, and I would have been so upset because we would have lost the money. And it was a scam. It was a scam. So I say that for scam awareness tonight. Don't end up in court. Don't lose your money. I have covered so many sad stories, especially elderly people. You get those calls and you worry that you're in trouble with the law. And I just have to say, be alert, be attentive. If someone calls and says, jury duty, you missed it, give us money, don't listen to them. Go buy whatever you want at Walgreens. Don't get gift cards for scammers. And if it's a hot day, you might want to get flip-flops somewhere else. Look at our live count, guys. It went up during the show. 501-578. Thank you for following. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow. I do want to let you know that you can follow me on all the platforms. I'm trying to do better at Instagram. I post a lot of videos, and I try not to flood my personal Instagram with the work stuff because I want to kind of keep it maybe personal. But anyway, there's where you can find me. I'm on Facebook, X, N Eaton on the Instagram, and East Idaho News on YouTube. You all know where that is. Thank you all so much for watching. Went a little long tonight. Hope you don't mind with that. And we'll be back tomorrow. The live stream starts in the morning, and it's improved. Our signal will be much improved. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.